I want to ensure that everybody knows this is Phil Rainwater, and he is with one of the many trades that are part of the Atlanta, North Georgia Building and Construction Trades Council. And as you who listen to this program every day, every Monday faithfully, know that on the fourth Monday now for several months we've been featuring one of those unions that are part of the council. In large part because the council is really trying to make sure that the community is aware that each one of these building trades has an apprenticeship program that is open to people in the community and gives them an opportunity to get a job, a union job with good pay, good prospects for a good future. And so we've been getting a different union here in the station, and it's been a super learning experience for all of us. And so today we have Local 48 of the Insulators and Allied Workers Union. Hi, Phil.
Hey, how are you?
And welcome, and thank you so much for coming. All right, so, we had a little chat out in the lobby, and I said, I know when I say this, insulators, people with little eyebrows are going to go up and they're going to say, what? All right, so I think your workers, the people in your union, probably have a job that is the least familiar, at least of the ones we've had so far. People know what electricians do, and iron workers and operating engineers and stuff like that. But they're probably not so sure about this. But before we get into what the workers in the local do, let me start with some personal questions for you. So how did you get into this union? How did you get into this trade?
Right. Well, actually back in 1980, right after graduating high school, I was looking at what my career was going to be because I was not college bound, and my brother at the time was doing construction work, and he told me, he says, look, he says, I can get you a job with the Insulators Union in the apprenticeship, and we can set that up, and you can start to work and see if you like it. And so actually the week after graduating high school, I began in the Apprenticeship Program, working with them on the job sites, construction jobs all over the metro Atlanta area. Got in there and stayed with it, and that was 39 years ago, so that's how long I've been with it.
All right, so now I guess I do have to start this question. What is it that a member of this local does?
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people, when they hear about insulation work, the first thing they think about is wall insulation in the house or attic insulation.
Everybody in the room is nodding their head.
Yeah. And that's mainly what people think about, but on any commercial building or industrial building, you've got piping systems, you've got tanks, boilers, you've got all types of equipment and stuff that has to maintain temperature. A lot of it hot that you don't want to get near because you get burnt. Anything like that, we put insulation on, and then we come back and we usually put some type of covering over the top of it, depending on where it's at. It could be metal, it could be plastic, it could be a paper finish, but it gives it a better appearance, a better look. But we insulate all those pipes, ducts, boilers, anything like that in a building that has to maintain temperature is something we would do all over, well, in 100 counties in the state of Georgia. That's our territory.
Okay, so this is absolutely a job that's done for commercial purposes then. You can't think of any reason why somebody would be doing this in an apartment building or a house, or apartment building because of boilers.
Apartments, building, anything that it's like, even a house. A house has got a duct system too, an air conditioning system. All that has to be insulated. So I mean, this does roll into houses. We just don't work in that market ourselves. There are people that do it. HVAC companies usually do it themselves, but we specialize in commercial and industrial because it's a bigger market. It requires the manpower to put a job in, where when you're doing houses and stuff, it's one or two guys, where With us, you know, we could be on a job with 50 or 60 guys doing the same thing. So that's the difference.
Okay, so I have to tell you that because everybody knows in the room what I'm going to say right now. One of the issues, of course, with the building trades, my dad, by the way, was an IBEW electrician. I went to many an IBEW picnic. I never saw a woman electrician the whole time I was growing up. But I know that from Randy Beal, who essentially has helped establish this program on a monthly basis here at WRFG's Labor Forum, that one of the issues, of course, is to diversify, to make these trades that have sort of traditionally not included people of color, women, and others, to make it clear, absolutely clear, that these jobs, these positions, this career, this trade is available to them if they are interested and want to do it.
Absolutely.
So I know the word guys doesn't necessarily mean only men.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I do want to ask you, because there might be some women out there who go, oh, does that mean I'm crawling inside of a duct? What does it mean? How does one insulate any of the things you just said?
Depending on what you're doing, what type of equipment, or for a duct, for instance, like you're talking about, an air conditioning duct, most of that is done on the outside. It's usually a wrap type insulation that's usually 2 inches thick. It is put over it and stapled, actually in place, and then you come back with a tape that goes over the top of the staples to cover all the seams and stuff. And that's usually one piece is applied at a time.
I could do that.
Yes, of course you could. Of course you could. Same way with a pipe. I mean, when we insulate pipes, they come in 3-foot sections of insulation. They can be different types of insulation. You know, a lot of people, insulation is fiberglass, which we do a lot of. But there's other types of insulations we use. We use a rubber type material on very cold equipment. We use what they call calcium silicate, which is a very hard material that we put on pipes, steam pipes, something that gets very hot. So you have to learn how to do the different types of materials, but all that comes in sections. They're easily installed on the pipes in most cases. Of course, I will say it does take some skill to do it. And you form the pipes and insulate them and make them look good, and you step back and you say, man, I'm proud of that. There you go.
I want to say that I think that that's the key to most workers. Regardless of what we do, we're proud.
Absolutely.
When we're at the end of the day, we look at it, we say, I did that. All right, so you had told me when we talked about on the phone earlier that in decades gone by, the workers in your union applied asbestos. It is now abundantly clear that this is a most dangerous product, and so I wish you would talk a little bit about how it came to be known because trade unions have always had a position of defending and protecting their workers. So how is it that, and when is it that it became clear that asbestos was a danger to the workers, and how is it that that was then transitioned, or how did the union help with that transition?
Right. Well, most people may or may not know, asbestos back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s was a prime insulating material. It was applied, we actually applied it as workers during that time. If you were working then, it was part of our material that was applied. That was before OSHA regulation, so you didn't know anything about the material or what kind of dangers were associated with the material. So as time went on in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they started noticing a large number of people who worked with asbestos, not only just insulators in my trade, but also people in these manufacturing plants who made the materials.
Shipyards, all kinds of places.
A lot of people coming down with disease or some type of cancer that was just ravaging people, and they just, you know, they went and started doing, of course, you know, not experiments, but watching studies on them. And they determined that by inhaling these fibers, it was causing cancers in the lungs, in the stomach area, intestinal area. Those fibers would penetrate the body, and of course, once they penetrated the body, they would, an asbestos fiber, if you know anything about asbestos, one asbestos fiber, if you took the same piece of steel and compared it, that asbestos fiber is stronger than that piece of steel. So when you inhale those, they would stick into your lung tissue, whatever, and once they're in there, of course your body has a defense mechanism and it attacks it trying to get rid of it. But because asbestos fibers don't dissolve, they're not, you can't burn them up, so that is stuck in there. Your body starts building up what it calls calcification from on that fiber trying to get rid of it. And over time, that calcification turns into a cancerous mass. And then that's what starts the process. Well, once they figured out what was going on with the fibers, a lot of these big industries, you know, started doing studies trying to make it sound like it wasn't the fibers that was killing people, it was other things. And then they started cleaning up the fibers and saying, we're doing our best to protect workers. Again, all this before OSHA ever come about. And by that time, thousands and thousands of people have died due to this fiber. And most of your buildings built during those periods, anywhere from the 20s up to 1980, these buildings are loaded with asbestos fibers, not just in what we put on insulation, but in the sheetrock, the floor tiles, the ceiling tiles, paint, everything. These fibers were the wonder back in the 20s. They would take these fibers and mix it with everything, and it gave everything a body and substance, you know. And even concrete, they would mix it with concrete, and so your whole buildings, basically built during those time frames, are loaded with asbestos fibers, which is fine as long as the fibers are not airborne. But once they get airborne, that's when they become hazardous.
So you told me that while none of the workers in your local apply asbestos anymore, they are involved in the removal of it. So how does one get trained to do that? Is that part of your apprenticeship training?
Yes, our apprenticeship training, that's the first thing we do when we take in a new class of apprentices is we teach them what asbestos is and what it does. We teach them the proper way to deal with it. We teach them how to recognize the different materials that has asbestos in them. And then we teach them if you're around it, this is how you protect yourself, this is how you remove it, and and we show them all the ways it's set up. It's actually a 40-hour training course that they go through on just removing the asbestos. Just make sure they're doing it right.
Well, go ahead, Calvin.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, so I remember back in, I want to say in the early 80s, they had these guys with like these whole white suits on. They was removing asbestos from like all of the older buildings, like you said, that were built from the 20s to the 80s, I guess.
Yeah, it was, and that was some of our people. That's what we do. You dress out the Tyvek suits, the respirators, the coverings over the head and the feet. Yeah,
they were hiring people, you know, specifically for that job.
Sure.
Back then. So.
Yeah, and it was back in the early 80s. Removing asbestos was a big thing, especially schools. Right. That's what they found out is that a lot of the schools built during the 60s, 70s, all those, they used asbestos in them, and they found out, of course, being exposed to asbestos at an early age brought on a disease within 30 to 40 years. So you're talking about a 10-year-old in school, by the time they're 50, they're coming down with some type of asbestos-related disease. And that's when the government got together and put out some special grant money that allowed companies to go in there and tear this asbestos out of the schools. And we did a lot of that in the early 80s, just getting the schools back to where the students could go back in there safely.
All right, so let me go again on the different places because I've always, everybody who's been on the program, I've said, okay, I'm driving down the street. Where am I seeing union, electricians? Where am I seeing union operating engineers? So I'm driving down the street in Atlanta. Where am I seeing members of Local 48?
Pretty much, if you look around, you'll see a crane or a tower crane sticking up, new buildings going on. We're probably in a lot of those buildings doing that work. The biggest job we completed, well, it's been a couple of years now, but we did all the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That was a job we did with about 50 of our guys, worked on that job and completed it. Because Mercedes-Benz Stadium is an enclosed stadium, so they have air conditioning that has to maintain temp. We insulated all those pipes and ducts in there that maintain temp in that big facility.
And then it has to be warm in the winter.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's part of us here in Atlanta. We also do a lot of work for power generation. The power plants that produce the electricity, we have to, they use steam, produce their electricity that runs through a turbine. You're talking about temperatures 700-800 degrees, that we insulate the boilers and the steam pipes and put metal coverings over them on those plants. So anywhere there's a power generating plant, that's part of our job too.
All right, so let me ask this question. So this was a union and a trade that I didn't know anything about. You mentioned earlier that you cover, you have members in 100 of the counties in Georgia. So how many people are Local 48 members, roughly?
Right now we're a small union of the building trades. We're not one of the bigger like the plumbers and pipe fitters, but we're around 350 members. We're spread out over the Atlanta metro area. So it's we do cover 100 counties in the state of Georgia, but it's like anything else. You get below Macon or so, you get below that.
Right, you don't have some of the big.
Right, you get below that construction line, and we don't have a lot of work down there in the cow fields and stuff, pecan orchards. But Atlanta metro, we stay pretty busy. Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question because I'm guessing that there's more than 350 people who do this work.
That's
so
right.
There are people who have not been trained the way union members are trained.
That's correct.
And I wanted to ask a little bit about safety on the job. Because even though what you're saying is, the pipes are in, a manageable section and stuff like that, nevertheless, when you're talking about 30, 40, 50-story buildings or things that go feet and feet underground, you're talking about a lot of potential for falls. You're talking about a lot of potential, I suppose, for cuts or other kinds of incidences. And so I was wondering a little bit about who and how does somebody who doesn't go through the union apprenticeship program learn this trade and be able to do it safely?
As far as learning the trade, I mean, of course, we would say the only way to do it would be to come through an apprenticeship training program. There's a lot of people that do it in the open shop sector that have been just passed on from somebody showing them how to do it. But if that person is interested in getting into an apprenticeship training program, that's where you're going to learn about safety. We always put our apprentices through OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 training, which when you say 10 and 30, that's how long the course is. We put you through a 10-hour OSHA training course that teaches you about OSHA laws and how they apply to you as a construction worker. And then if you want to do a little bit of further study, we do our OSHA 30 training. Once the guys get into their 3rd or 4th year in an apprenticeship, that gives them the ability to be foremen on the job and stuff, and have a better understanding of the safety regulations and laws that govern construction work. But that's about the only way that teaching somebody how to be safe is you have to really put them in that setting to where they can learn and understand those laws. Those laws are very difficult, and a lot of people don't know what the laws are that govern construction safety, so that's the only way to really learn it.
All right, so I have one more question on the safety issue. what would be the most common accident or injury that is preventable, but that happens, particularly on non-union work sites?
The most common OSHA recordable accident is a fall. Falling from height. That's usually a person working without proper safety harnesses, safety rigging. That is the most common accident all across the country. So it applies to us too, because most of our work is above ceilings or well up in the air. So, you know, you're working on lifts, you're working on ladders, you're working on scaffolding. Everything, when you get off the ground like that, you have to have the proper safety equipment to do it with. Safety harnesses, lanyards, belts, anything that's designed to protect you from falling. But a lot of people, if you go to the OSHA website and look at the fatalities in construction, you'll learn real quick just by reading through them what happened, and 99% of the time it's the person did not have proper safety training and the person did not wear the proper safety equipment. So that's the number one fatalities in construction.
I know when I drive around and I see all, particularly my side of town, the southeast side of town, there are these apartment buildings, multi-story apartment buildings going up everywhere. I see all these workers, you know, hanging out on the side of buildings with no harnesses. It's quite distressing, because no job is really worth your life.
That's right, absolutely.
But certainly there's a great deal of pressure to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the apprenticeship program. Oh, do you need to do something?
No, well,
You have a question?
Yeah, I had a question.
Calvin always can butt in.
I just wanted to ask. I just wanted to ask. But usually, unions, they train people for safety and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
so you have less of these things happening with union jobs.
Oh, right. These clearly these workers are not in a union that I'm seeing dancing around on.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted to say.
Without belts and
usually,
harnesses.
Yeah, usually those accidents are by people that aren't taking the proper safety measures, like Mr. Rainwater was just saying.
Right.
So that's what.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's why I say if you want to do something and read up on safety regulations, go to the OSHA website, OSHA.gov, and they got all the fatality reasons. They got the breakdown of what happened, and what you'll really see is a lot of it is Hispanic people and who haven't been properly trained. A lot of times it comes in with where the foreman may even actually be an English-speaking foreman and not able to properly communicate with the Hispanic worker. And a lot of that happens on the open shop job sites and stuff, where we try to push that in our apprenticeship. Is if you got we got guys that are not fluent in English. We do try to work with them with English as a second language class and helping them, because when you go on job sites, you've got to be able to communicate. If you don't, that is definitely a place that will cause something to happen bad.
It has it within itself.
Right.
What you was about to say, Dan?
Well, I was about to go into a little bit more about the apprenticeship program, because one of the goals really, we have had one person who has joined the IBEW apprenticeship program and is also a WRFG air shifter, so it's like two wins at the same time, win-win. Andrew Campbell, and so we always would love to hear that more people have gone ahead and applied and have gotten into these programs. So let's start from the very beginning. Somebody out there is listening, and they say, oh, I think I'm going to tell my niece, my nephew, my daughter, my whoever about this. What do they do now?
Well, there's a website you can go to learn a little bit about us. If you're interested in that, the website is Insulators48.org. That will give you information on what we do. It also gives you phone numbers that you can call and speak to someone about it. I think it's a very good website to be able to allow people to see what we do and give them an idea if this is something you want to do. Not all jobs, not all people are cut out for the insulation industry. Sometimes insulation can be an irritant to the skin and stuff, so a lot of people, you know, just that's not what they'd like to do. So, but if you go to that website, it's got the application on there to fill out. You can print it out, fill it out, mail it in. We will definitely contact you down the line and let you know when our interview dates are opening up for an apprenticeship.
So one of the things that we've talked about on the program with each one of the building trades is that an apprenticeship program is a earn and learn.
That's right.
So in other words, unlike going to some other schools, I have noticed, because there's clearly been a lot of information about how the generation of members of all building trades, whether union or not, is getting older, and that there needs to be new people brought in. And so I've seen that there's for-profit trade schools being set up all over, and they have ads on television and everything about this. And then when I'm watching it, I go, no, listen to WRFG. You can learn how to get into a union apprenticeship program, and it's not going to charge you a whole bunch of bucks. And in fact, you're going to earn and learn. So could you talk about how one earns while they learn?
Absolutely. Our apprenticeship program, the classes are set up at night from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. You only go one night a week. It is for a 4-year period, but you know, one night a week from 5 to 9. During the day, you work for one of our contractors, making a hourly rate. Our starting pay is $15.47 an hour. That's for somebody that is green and doesn't know anything. So it's a decent starting wage. And as you progress through the school, every year you will get a raise. And usually the raise is in the 10% range per year. So you complete a year, you get a 10% raise, complete another year, another 10% raise. So hopefully once you complete the program, you turn out, you become what they call a journeyman at that time. Journeyman pay, top out pay right now for us is $28.12 an hour. So within 4 years, you go from $15.47 to $28. Plus you have health coverage and a pension and a retirement. I just don't know anywhere else you can get stuff like that. I thank God every day about it, because that's how I got here. And it's been great for me. I've raised a family off of it, 3 kids, and you know, the health insurance is, at my age now, you really need the health insurance and the retirement. I look forward to getting to that point one day.
All right, so any other questions from Mike? Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to ask you, so are there very many women involved now? Or?
We've got 2 women in our apprenticeship program. We just had one that turned out a couple of years ago as a journeyman.
Journey person?
Yeah. So I mean, you know, and of course we're open any women for applications, and if they get through the interview process, and if we got the work and able to place them in work, and they can do it, we're there. We sure are.
Great.
One of the things that maybe before we close, that we could talk a little bit more about is actually the Building Trades Council. So Randy Beal, who is with the Building Trades Council, is the person who actually helped set up this idea of the Labor Forum, having once a month featuring one of the building trades in the council. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about this council of all the different kind of trades involved in construction, and what it is that its purpose is, and how it is that you work together.
Yeah, the Building Trades Council is all the crafts here in Atlanta that work on construction projects, just like us, the insulators. You got the plumbers, pipe fitters, the sheet metal workers, the carpenters, the electricians, of course, operating engineers. Yeah, I can sit here and go through all 14 of them if my mind will remember them all. But we're all together on a council that we work together to benefit all the trades and to keep, to help our apprenticeship schools and just doing the right thing for workers and working together to make sure we all have a collective bargaining agreement that benefits the workers and their families.
Let me ask this question. Suppose somebody starts in one building trade apprenticeship program. Oh, maybe this really isn't for me. Does the council then sort of have the ability to say, and they say that I want to try this? Is that, you help grease the wheels is what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah, we would. I mean, if I had somebody that said, hey, Phil, I just don't think I'm cut out for this, I would say, well, is there something else you would like to try? And I would definitely direct them where they can go and talk to the guy or over the program and see about getting into theirs, you know. Each local or each trade takes in apprentices at different times of the year. Some of them are year-round, some of them do it once a year, some of them twice a year. So you have to try to, you know, hit that time when they're taking them in. But yeah, we'd help anybody. You know, the key to keeping a job in the construction industry is be there every day, show up every day, and work. It's no harder than that. And if you can do that, you can do this trade.
All right. So one more time. Websites, telephone numbers, Facebook pages, social media. How does a listener out there follow up on this and see whether or not when is your period of accepting people?
We just finished our period up. We actually our first night of school will be the first week of September, the day after Labor Day. Our apprenticeship school will start. So we just took in a class. We will take applications, and as jobs dictate to where we need to add people, we will have those applications on file and you know, call people as needed. You know?
All right, so in other words, even though the period is sort of finished and the class is about to begin, if you are interested in this particular skill, you should go ahead and make the call and get your application in. Is that the advice you're offering? All right, so one more time, how do people do that?
All right, you can go to our website, is Insulators48 at, Insulators48.org, or you can go to we also have an international website that covers the whole country. It's just insulators.org. Either one of those websites can direct you to us. Our office numbers is 404-373-9866. You're welcome to call at any time, and either way, those websites, phone numbers, it'll direct you to our apprenticeship, what to do.
You know, there's one more benefit I think we should mention, that if you have your union card from this local, you are able to travel across the country and get a job elsewhere.
Absolutely. You can go from Atlanta. If you move to Portland, Oregon, we have a local in Portland, Oregon, and you're able to move your membership from our organization here in Atlanta to the Portland one. That's the best thing about the Apprenticeship Training Program. Across the United States and Canada, we do the same curriculum. We do the same training at each local. So going from Atlanta to Portland, you've already been trained the same way they're training in Portland. So that way everybody is very knowledgeable. They know the rules, they know the materials, they know what to do, and that's what makes a great workforce, a great skilled workforce. Everybody's on the same page. There's nobody that's left behind.
All right. Let me say thank you so much. Thank you so much. So folks, you've been listening to Phil Rainwater. Phil is, if you haven't been able to figure it out, is with the Insulators and Allied Workers Union, Local 48. We want to thank him, and we really want to thank every one of the union folks that have come onto the program on the fourth Monday to provide this really interesting information. And of course, I always say that most people are not aware of all the various skills that it takes to build or transport or manufacture or grow anything.
Everything.
Yeah, so most people don't know how many hands something passes through, how many skills it took to do it. And so I've really, really enjoyed learning from all the building trades union members who've come here to let us have a better idea about how a building and all the parts of a building come together. So folks, thank you so much for tuning in today, WRFG's Labor Forum. We'll be back again next Monday.